Morning, Coach. Doug Feinberg, the AP. I got a two-part question. The first part is the transfer portal. The teams that are in the Final Four all have additions this past year or two that have helped them through the transfer portal. Has that helped lengthen the gap between the haves and have-nots in some way? I mean, mid-majors had a terrible year in the tournament, and the four best teams are playing now, and they all had impactful transfers. Second part is, I know you discussed the format of the two regionals, but it's 5 years since the mess of COVID and being in the same spot in the weight room, the light that was shined on inequity. Do you see the game minus the regional issue being better than it was 5 years ago for women's basketball as compared to the men, the equity part of it?
Yeah, the portal and the revenue share. I think that was the death of the mid majors. The death of high school players coming to play college basketball. As it's never been harder for a high school kid to have the same opportunities that an existing college player already has. When your choice is go get a high school senior or go get a college sophomore for your team, a lot of coaches are deciding that getting a college sophomore is way better, and the place where they usually go to get them is a mid-major. So you're going to see less and less of those mid-majors competing in the NCAA tournament. There is a way that they can fix that, just giving more opportunities to the mid-majors so that those kids that are playing at those schools feel like they have a path to at least play in the NCAA tournament, okay? And if you would eliminate all those teams that have a losing record in their league and say, listen, if you have a losing record in your league, you don't deserve to play for a national championship, and give more opportunities to those mid-majors, just like the discussion between Miami of Ohio and Auburn. Like in what world are you discussing that, right? So that's a big problem, and the amount of money that people are offering kids. So the revenue sharing is 20.5, and it's going up this year. But at the schools it's 22, 23, 24 just for the basketball team. So it's probably another 40 for the football team. So there goes that 22.5, right? So yeah, salary caps and all that stuff would help. As far as where the game is, it's crazy. I remember seeing that weight room thing, and everybody made such a big deal of it. Okay, this is my 25th Final Four. Not once has any of my players asked, "Hey, coach, can I go lift weights?" It was the biggest embarrassment of all time that caused the uproar that it did, and then the NCAA scrambling around, going, "Oh my God, we have to be equal to the men." When there are things like the regionals that are important, right? There are things like the regionals that are important. So I think the game has grown so much since the pandemic. I think we have a moment here right now that we capture that moment and spread the game to more places in the country. We can really take advantage of it. I think schools, more schools, I was thinking about this recently. They said that it's the first time since the same schools are back to back. And the last time we were in it, it was us, Tennessee, Stanford, and Georgia. Think about that. Us, Tennessee, Stanford, and Georgia. How many Final Fours has those other three schools made in the last 15 years? So the game has changed so much because so many more schools now have an opportunity to get here. That doesn't mean they're going to get here, but they have an opportunity to get here. So the game's in a really, really good place. People are watching, tremendous interest. it's our job now to put a really good product on the court.
I'm going to stay to the back. We're going to go here and then come back up to you, Howard.
Hey, Geno, Cameron T with The Athletic. Sarah and AZ both talked about how confident Blanca is and how she came in with that confidence. I'm curious if you can kind of speak to her mindset and how maybe that's impressed you for her being so young and how maybe that's rubbed off on everybody else.
Yeah, well, I don't want everything that she does to rub off on anybody, to be honest with you. She's my head hurts every day of practice because there's nothing that Blanca thinks she can't do. So she tries to do every single thing that you can think of. And you can imagine how that goes, right? Most days. But they were right. Her level of confidence in herself, her belief in herself, and maybe that stems from, you're 13 years old and living in Ecuador, and how many kids from Ecuador aspire to play in the WNBA and then moves halfway across the world to Italy, and so she's now fazed by, okay, I'm at UConn. This is a really big deal, So her belief in herself, I think, is one of the things that separates her. I think a lot of kids today, they don't necessarily have that belief. They don't necessarily have that level of confidence. They walk around like they do, but they really don't. Hers is real, and I think it's infectious,
Howard, if you could raise your hand.
Hi, Howard McDonald, the Nine Sports. Good to see you, Geno. Two, if I could. First, just comparing to last year and having the new pieces that South Carolina has, Tanaya Latson certainly among them, but not the only one. I'm just wondering how defensively things changed for them as you prepare for them today. And then just kind of build off of what you were saying about Blanca. Yes, of course, first year, but she has played more minutes, obviously, in each successive NCAA game. And I just wondered if you could take me through what your process is to learn to trust freshmen who haven't been in this spot yet. How do you determine when and how you do it?
Obviously, this is a different South Carolina team than the one we played last year. Our 2 wins against them last year don't really mean anything going into tomorrow. The way that game was played, has no bearing on tomorrow. They have added some really key pieces. I think they're a much better team than they were last year. Really hard to prepare for. They've shot the ball exceptionally well this year, and they've added the size that is hard to match up with. So defensively, we have our challenges with them. The other part of your question about
How you learn to trust.
Trust my freshmen.
Yeah.
I don't. I just cross my fingers, close my eyes, and put them out there. But we've had a history of freshmen playing really well in the NCAA tournament. I was just talking to the people out there about that when Nikisha Sales was a freshman in 1995, and she was coming off the bench, and Jen Rosati was on the bench with 3 fouls in the first half. And I said, Keisha, you're going to have to bring the ball up. And, only Keisha could. I ain't no point guard, yo. I'm not playing that position. Like, well, you're playing it today, So there's some freshmen that whatever position you put them in, they have it. They have it. They have it mentally. They have it emotionally. The moment's not going to be too big for them. And then you just got to hope that they can do what you think they can do.
We're shifting to our right-hand side. If you could raise your hand, and we can get to, our left-hand side.
Hi, Maddie Kenny with the New York Post. When AZ was talking about just her kind of being in denial and kind of recapping all of her emotions and stuff, it looked like, I was just curious, like, what was going through your head if her talking about, like, this being her last hurrah, like, meant anything or means anything to you, I guess.
We may have discussed this at some point, but I think the hardest part is being a senior at Connecticut and knowing what that means and what the expectation for you is, and carrying that around with you. This is my last time. So many of our players have ended their careers cutting down nets on the national championship game, and you desperately want to be one of those people, And if we win tomorrow and if we win Sunday, AZ will be crowned, one of the greatest of all time. If we don't win tomorrow and we don't even get a chance to play on Sunday, she's going to feel like that this was a disappointing year for her. So I try to make it that it's November. Don't think about January. Hey, it's January. Don't think about March. Let's just enjoy what we've got right now. And once we beat Notre Dame to get here, to me, AZ's job was done. What happens here the next game, that's all just bonus. Because getting here is the hard part. Now, we'll talk about hopefully on Monday. That's when it hits them really hard. So.
Go to our right. If you can raise your hand in the purple.
Hey, Coach. It's Aya Abdi for the 9450. So how special is it to play in the city where Diana Taurasi has built her legacy in the city of Phoenix for the last 20 years and made a name for herself as well?
Yeah, I had dinner with Dee last night, and in typical Dee fashion, she's the story. We practiced at her facility yesterday. Her logo on the court, right? They said it, and so I can. In my mind, the greatest basketball player to ever play college basketball, and maybe the greatest WNBA player of all time. So to be here, I know it means a lot to her, and I know it means a lot to our players. So, yeah, you don't often get a chance to do that,
Our right-hand side. Excuse me, left-hand side.
Hey, Geno, over here.
Yeah.
Annie Constable, Front Office Sports. The same kind of question I asked of AZ, but taking the incentives out of it, more from a developmental standpoint, do you think the or the women's players are ready to leave college early from a developmental standpoint? Do you see that being the future of the women's game, and what would it do to the women's game if that rule around entering the WNBA did change?
No, I think it would be a really bad rule. I'm not saying they need to stay 4 years. I've coached players that after their freshman year they would be able to handle it. I do think women's basketball would suffer in that you wouldn't get the recognition around the country that AZ Fudd has if you're in college 1 year. Okay. If Sarah would have left after last year, right, you wouldn't have that continued watching her grow, and she would go to the WNBA. Great for her, great opportunity for her, but a bad opportunity because you're not going to replace her. with somebody equal. So the game of women's basketball would be diminished, I think, if those kids were one and done. Maybe a baseball situation, where you either go right out of high school, which very, very few, if any of them, would be ready to do that, or it's a three-year commitment, like baseball has. I think that's, and I think the way football does it, you're not going to send a college freshman or a college sophomore to play against grown men that will break you in half. So I do think there's benefits for them to grow. And now that the money they're making, you got pros wanting to come back to college. So I think the way it is now, if there was going to tweak it, I would like the baseball model.
Coach, we just went a minute over our time, so you are now free to go. We want to thank you for
Go
your
ahead.
time.
Well,
Oh, you wanna go
one more
ahead?
question.
Okay, there we go.
Thanks, Scott, Arizona Republic. Kevin Durant said a couple nights ago when the Rockets honored the Houston Comets, Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, and Tina Thompson at halftime against the Knicks, that he feels bad for the Connecticut fan base. The Sun, they've been so supportive of the Sun, and that they're coming back to Houston, but at least they got UConn basketball. How does it feel to hear that from Kevin, being that you built this brand from your first 1991 Final Four?
Yeah, that is a heck of a compliment from KD, and it is unfortunate, that we were talking about. It's viewed upon as a mid-major. The Connecticut Sun are in a mid-major. They're a mid-major compared to Chicago, Houston, LA, New York. So it was just a matter of time, maybe, until that happened. And it's unfortunate because they had developed a tremendous fan base. And it wasn't, the UConn fan base all of a sudden became Connecticut Sun. They grew their own fan base. But I think that's one of the advantages that we have up in Connecticut, that UConn basketball, men's and women's, are pro franchises. So we don't have a WNBA team. We don't have an NBA team. We don't have a Major League Baseball team. We don't have an NFL team. We don't have an NHL team. But we have UConn basketball. And maybe that's why this is the 6th time that our men and women have been in the Final Four at the same time. Because we are a pro franchise. We've always been a pro franchise. And maybe that gives us a little bit of an edge, in how our players are treated. And I think Kevin saw that firsthand, when I was coaching the Olympic team, and a lot of my players were on the Olympic team, and he was around them, obviously a lot. So, coming from him, I think that means an awful lot.